Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm so excited that you are here with me as we spend time in the Word of God and as we have this discussion here. If this is your first time, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come and stop by. And I hope that you will subscribe and become part of this community. So, today I want to do something a little bit different. I want to talk about Rahab a little bit. And I know most of us hear Rahab and we know that Rahab is in the Bible and that somewhere she helped the Israelites to escape. She hid them so that they weren't captured. And we know I want to say basics about who Rahab is, like the things that everybody knows, but I want to go a little bit deeper into who Rahab is. So you might want to grab you something to drink because I'm hoping it don't take forever, but we all know how I get when I start doing my Bible talks, and I don't want to go too deep down in the rabbit hole, but I do want to give just a little bit more about who Rahab is. Okay, so Rahab is found in Joshua, and we are going to be looking at Joshua chapter 2. Now, Rahab in Hebrew is Rachav. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct. And that means wide or broad. Or spacious. We'll go ahead and add that one too. Now, Rahab is living in Jericho, and she is referred to in the book as a harlot. And she lives in Jericho. So we're going to read a little bit here. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, Behold, men have come here tonight from the children of Israel to search out the country. So the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, Bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out all the country. Then the woman took the 2 men and hid them. So she said, Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from, and it happened as the gate was being shut when it was dark, that the men went out. Where the men went I do not know. Pursue them quickly, for you may overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them in the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order on the roof. Then the men pursued them by the road to the Jordan fords, and as soon as those who pursued them had gone out, they shut the gate. Okay, so she could probably get in trouble for lying, but she lied to protect these men. So she lives in Jericho, and now she has lied to the men of the king to protect these men, Israelite men. Okay, and next, verse 8, Now before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land are faint-hearted because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were on the other side of the Jordan. So now she is going to them and she is saying, We know who you are. That's why there is a fear of who you are, because we know what your God can do. The Lord your God, He is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. Now therefore I beg you, swear to me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, that you also will show kindness to my father's house, and give me a true token, and spare my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. So now she's wanting to make a deal with them, and she's like, okay, I know who your God is. I know what he does. I have shown you kindness by hiding you and sparing your life. So I'm asking that you would do the same thing for me and my family when you come in, that you would show kindness to us. So she is a bold woman, because she's just telling them, hey, I've done this for you. I would like for you to do this for me. So the men answered her, our lives for yours, if none of you tell this business of ours, and it shall be when the Lord has given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with you. Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the city wall. She dwelt on the wall. And she said to them, get to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you. Hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Afterward you may go your way. Now the fact that she dwelt on the wall, because they do put that in there, she dwelt on the wall, this allowed her to hide the Israelite men, and then also allow them a way of escape, because she was on the wall. Now Rahab was described as a harlot, but as we read, there is some faith that she does have in God, because she knows who these men are, and she helps them, and she tells them, the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and on earth. So she's acknowledging who he is. And as I was continuing to read, I was reading that in Hebrew, Rahab means broad or wide or spacious, but depending on the context of how it's used, it can also mean a woman of faith. So I found that interesting about Rahab, considering that she was a harlot then, yet she knew who God was. And she had some faith, believing that if she hid these men and protected these men, that she wouldn't just be killed. Because I mean, they could have just, in all reality, with everything that was going on back then, they could have just killed her. No, they didn't. They made this deal with her, and they're like, yeah, you showed kindness to us, and we will show kindness to you and your family. Okay, so if we go down to verse 17, so the men said to her, we will be blameless of this oath of yours, which you have made us swear, unless when we come into the land you bind this line of scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you bring your father, your mother, your brothers, and all your father's house to your own home. They tell her, we will be free of any wrongdoing, basically, if you don't hang this scarlet rope or thread out your window, so that we know this is your home, and bring your family, your father's house, here also. Otherwise, if something happens to them, that will not be on us, because we are making this deal with you, and this is part of the deal. You do this so that we know that this is your house and that it is protected. So Rahab and her family are spared while they are going in and destroying Jericho. We also see that Rahab is mentioned in the New Testament twice, from what I've read. There could be more. If there's more, please feel free to comment and let me know where else. But I know in Hebrews 11:31, she is mentioned. By faith, the harlot Rahab didn't perish, or did not perish. And after she did what she did, and also in Matthew 1:5, when it's talking about the genealogy, she is also referenced there. But I was wondering why in the New Testament Rahab was still the harlot Rahab. And as I was reading and going through and I had looked up some things, I had seen where they use the term harlot to show who she used to be. And that even in her past, in that life, she had faith because she had heard of the power of the God of the Israelites. So by faith, who she was didn't prevent her from being saved because of her faith. So we can see that in Hebrews, just because you have a past that you might be ashamed of, you do not have to live according to who that person was. When you choose to step out, you are a new person. We see that God used Rahab despite her past. If you look at Matthew, they're talking about the genealogy, and you'll notice that Rahab is mentioned in the genealogy of King David and, Jesus. So God used somebody that most people would consider unclean and unworthy to have any kind of relationship with Jesus. Who she was did not hinder her from doing what she felt was right. She felt that this is what she needed to do because she knew that the God of the Israelites was mighty and he was powerful, and that they were going to come in and destroy Jericho. And so she said, that's not what I want to happen to myself and my family. So this is what I want. There's that boldness. I want this. I believe that your God is going to be with you. I believe that you're going to come in and you're going to destroy Jericho. So I want to be protected. And that's what she received. She was spared. Her and her family was spared. So this is just to show that just because people see you one way, and I know this isn't like a huge deep dive into Rahab. Like I said, I was going to go a little bit deeper than what most people may think about Rahab when they hear about her, but I wasn't going to go completely down a rabbit hole because that would take a while. But when you are coming out of a place and those people know you and try to bring you back down, just remember Rahab. Rahab was a harlot in Jericho, so she sold her body, and God used her to hide 2 Israelites that were there to scope out the land. She showed her faith and belief in who God was by hiding these 2 men and then lying to the king's men when they come to question her about them, which I'm sure that could have gotten her in a lot of trouble then helping them to escape, tying the cord in her window so that they would know. So she believed that this deal she made with them was going to come to pass. Then she goes on to be included in the genealogy of Jesus. So God didn't just put her in there and show us that this is a harlot in Jericho. And yeah, she saves these 2 guys who were being chased by the king's men, because they're going to kill them because they know what they are in Jericho to do. And she showed some faith there, or she showed some kindness there to these men. She knows who God is, what these men are going to do, and then she's safe, and you never hear about her ever again. So she did that. That was awesome. No, she did that. And then we go on to read in Matthew that she is included. She is part of the genealogy of Jesus. And then we go on to read, by her faith, she did not perish. So he worked in Rahab to expand her beyond where she was. Because she could have just continued to be a harlot and, live her life the way she had been living it. But God had something more for her. So he expanded her. And she goes on to live her life and becomes part of the lineage for Jesus. And then is also mentioned in the New Testament, as I've said, by faith. So it didn't matter that she was a harlot. God did not look upon her and say, oh, this disgusting woman, I could never work in her. I could never use her for any ministry or anything that I want to show people the love and mercy and power of God. Or, he didn't say that. He didn't base her worth on what she did, her past, her social standings, her economic standings. He didn't say, you don't make enough money for me to be able to work through you. You don't hang out with the right people for me to be able to work through you. And we also see this in the New Testament when Jesus is hanging out with the tax collectors. He helps another prostitute. He doesn't minimize these people based on their past or where they are right at the moment that he meets them. He based it off their heart. And that's what I felt about Rahab. That, yeah, she had a past, and most people would probably be ashamed to even be seen with her or acknowledge her because of who she was. But at that moment, I don't see those two Israelites as worrying about who she was versus the fact that she was trying to help them escape death. So it's not just about who you are socially, economically, or your past. It's about where your heart is. Are you in a place that you are open to let God work in you and through you, and to enlarge you to do what he wants you to do, is calling you to do? So I just wanted to share that because I found it interesting that usually you hear Rahab and okay, yeah, Rahab was a harlot that saved the two Israelites by hiding them and then helped them escape. And I don't know, maybe when you talk to people, they know a little bit more about who Rahab is. But I know usually that's what I hear when Rahab is mentioned, is that little portion of it. But there's more to who she is than the fact that she was a harlot that helped save two Israelites. Her name has meaning to it. Things happened in such a way that placed her in a position to be able to help these Israelites. I mean, she lives on the wall. And like I said, I'm sure there is plenty more information to read up about Rahab. God worked in Rahab in her life and worked through her. And she ended up marrying Salmon, the prince of the tribe of Judah, I believe. If that's incorrect, you can correct me down in the comments. they had Boaz, and then we know that Boaz ended up, I believe the phrase was, redeeming Ruth because her husband had passed away. And then Ruth is like the great grandmother to David. And then David had Solomon. And then there's a whole list of names that I cannot pronounce at this moment. I will have to do some more studying and get the pronunciation of all these later on, but we can see that Jacob had Joseph, the husband of Mary, of who was born Jesus. Jesus took someone who nobody would ever think could do anything good and worked in her and through her in an amazing way. So yeah, I just want to share that bit of information, go a little bit beyond just the woman in Jericho who was a prostitute, and help the two Israelites, because there's more to who she is than just that. She did something major, you know? So, well, I hope everyone has a good day and stay safe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.